Here is a statistic that puts this entire topic into perspective. The standard flu vaccine is roughly 70 to 90% effective in younger adults, but that effectiveness drops to somewhere between 30 and 50% in adults over 65. This is not because older vaccines are somehow weaker, it is because the immune system itself changes with age, a process researchers call immunosenescence. And here is the part that matters most for you today. Several everyday habits can make this natural age-related decline considerably worse than it needs to be. In this video, we are covering 7 common habits that could be quietly weakening your immune system after 60, often without you ever realizing it. Stick around until the end because the 7th habit is the one most people do multiple times a day without a second thought. And the research on exactly how much it affects your immune defenses within hours might genuinely surprise you. Before we get into it, if you find value in clear, science-based health information like this, take a moment to subscribe to Longevity Insight. This channel exists to help you stay strong, resilient, and independent as the years go on. And we release new videos regularly covering exactly the kind of everyday habits that quietly shape how well you age. It takes 2 seconds, and it means you will not miss what is coming next. Now let us talk about your immune system. Before we walk through the 7 habits, it helps to understand what is actually changing inside your immune system as you age, since this context makes the rest of the video considerably more useful. As we get older, our bodies naturally produce fewer new immune cells, and existing immune cells become somewhat less efficient at recognizing and responding to new threats. At the same time, many older adults experience a phenomenon researchers call inflammaging, a state of persistent low-grade inflammation that quietly taxes the immune system's resources even when no specific infection is present. This combination means the immune system in someone over 60 is often working with fewer resources while simultaneously managing a higher baseline workload, which is exactly why lifestyle habits that support immune function matter more now than they may have earlier in life, and why habits that undermine it can have an outsized negative effect. This age-related decline has real, measurable consequences beyond vaccine response alone. Older adults consistently experience higher rates of hospitalization and more severe outcomes from common respiratory infections like influenza and pneumonia compared to younger adults, and recovery from everyday illnesses, colds, minor infections, even cuts and wounds, often takes noticeably longer than it once did. None of this means a weaker immune system in later life is simply an inevitable fate to be passively accepted. It means the everyday habits that support immune function carry more weight than they may have in your 30s or 40s, precisely because your body has less natural reserve to compensate for habits working against it. Habit number 1 is poor sleep. Sleep is when your immune system does much of its essential maintenance work, including producing and releasing proteins called cytokines, some of which are necessary for fighting infection and managing inflammation. Research has consistently shown that inadequate or poor quality sleep reduces the effectiveness of these processes, and in some studies, people who slept fewer than 6 hours a night were shown to have measurably higher susceptibility to catching a common cold when deliberately exposed to a cold virus, compared to those who slept 7 hours or more, with some research suggesting the risk of catching a cold nearly quadruples for the shortest sleepers compared to those getting a full night's rest. Sleep also plays a role in how well your body responds to vaccines, with some research suggesting that poor sleep around the time of vaccination can reduce the strength of the resulting immune response, sometimes cutting antibody production nearly in half compared to those who slept well in the days surrounding their vaccination. Given that so many older adults already deal with disrupted sleep, a topic we have covered in detail in a previous video on this channel, addressing sleep quality is not simply about feeling more rested, it is a genuine, evidence-based investment in immune resilience. Habit number 2 is a lack of physical activity. Regular moderate exercise has been shown in research to support immune function through several mechanisms, including improved circulation, which helps immune cells travel more efficiently throughout the body, and a reduction in the chronic low-grade inflammation we mentioned earlier. Sedentary behavior, on the other hand, has been associated with a higher risk of respiratory infections and a generally less responsive immune system. This does not mean intense exercise is required. In fact, research suggests that excessive, prolonged high-intensity exercise without adequate recovery can temporarily suppress immune function, meaning moderate, consistent activity, something like a brisk daily walk, tends to offer the most reliable immune benefit for most older adults, without the risk of overtraining that comes with more extreme exercise regimens. Habit number 3 is dehydration, a topic we have covered in detail in a previous video on this channel, but one that deserves mention here specifically for its immune implications. Adequate hydration supports the production of lymph, a fluid that carries infection-fighting white blood cells throughout your body. And it also helps maintain the health of mucous membranes in your nose and throat, which serve as an important first line of defense against airborne pathogens. When these membranes become dry due to inadequate fluid intake, they become less effective at trapping and clearing viruses and bacteria before they have a chance to cause infection. Given that older adults are already at higher risk of low-grade chronic dehydration due to a naturally reduced sense of thirst, this represents a particularly common and easily overlooked contributor to weakened immune defenses. Habit number 4 is chronic stress. Occasional short-term stress is a normal part of life and does not meaningfully harm immune function. And in fact, brief bursts of stress can sometimes temporarily enhance certain immune responses as part of the body's natural preparation to handle a challenge. The concern is specifically chronic, ongoing stress that persists over weeks, months, or years without adequate relief. Prolonged stress leads to sustained elevation of the stress hormone cortisol, and while cortisol plays a useful role in short bursts, chronically elevated levels have been shown in research to suppress various aspects of immune function, including reducing the number and effectiveness of certain white blood cells responsible for fighting off infection. Chronic stress has also been linked in multiple studies to slower wound healing, sometimes taking meaningfully longer for a minor injury to fully close and heal in individuals under significant ongoing stress compared to those who are not, and increased susceptibility to common infections, making stress management, something we have discussed in the context of brain health and heart health on this channel, a genuinely important piece of immune health as well. Habit number 5 is inadequate nutrition, particularly diets lacking sufficient vitamins and minerals known to support immune function, including vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, and protein, several of which we discussed in detail in a previous video on essential nutrients after 60. Vitamin D in particular plays a notable role in immune regulation, with research linking low vitamin D status to increased susceptibility to respiratory infections, and given how common vitamin D insufficiency becomes with age, this represents one of the more common and correctable nutritional gaps affecting immune resilience in older adults. Zinc deserves mention here too, given its well-documented role in immune cell development and function, a connection we explored in more depth in our video on essential nutrients, where we discussed how zinc absorption naturally declines with age, compounding the risk of a shortfall in this particular area. Protein deserves specific mention as well, since antibodies, the specialized proteins your immune system produces to fight specific pathogens, require adequate protein intake to be produced in sufficient quantities, meaning a diet that has become too light on protein, something that can happen gradually as appetite decreases with age, can directly undermine your body's ability to mount an effective immune response when it matters most. Habit number 6 is social isolation, and this is the habit that surprises people almost as much as the one we are saving for last. Research has increasingly identified loneliness and social isolation as genuine, measurable risk factors for weakened immune function, not simply as factors affecting mental and emotional well-being alone. Studies have found that socially isolated individuals show differences in immune cell gene expression patterns associated with increased inflammation and reduced antiviral response, essentially meaning the immune system of someone experiencing chronic loneliness behaves differently and less favorably at a cellular level compared to someone with strong, regular social connections. Some research has even found that socially isolated older adults show a weaker antibody response following vaccination, suggesting the connection is not merely correlational, but reflects a genuine biological pathway through which our social lives influence our physical defenses. This connection likely runs in both directions, since chronic stress and poor sleep, both of which we have already discussed, are also more common among socially isolated older adults, creating a compounding effect where isolation contributes to weakened immunity both directly and through these overlapping pathways. And now, habit number 7, the one I promised you at the beginning, excessive sugar intake. This is the habit that genuinely surprises people once they hear the specific research behind it, because most people think of sugar purely in terms of weight or blood sugar control, without realizing it has a measurable, fairly immediate effect on immune function as well. Research dating back several decades and continuing to be replicated in more recent studies has shown that consuming a significant amount of sugar can temporarily reduce the ability of certain white blood cells, specifically a process called phagocytosis, where immune cells engulf and destroy invading bacteria for several hours following consumption. Some studies have observed this suppressive effect lasting up to 5 hours after a high sugar intake, meaning that a diet with multiple sugary meals, snacks, or beverages spread throughout the day could potentially keep this aspect of immune function partially suppressed for a substantial portion of your waking hours. Beyond this immediate effect, chronically high sugar intake also contributes to the kind of persistent low-grade inflammation we discussed earlier, and it is closely linked to excess weight and blood sugar imbalances, both of which independently strain immune function over the long term. This is precisely why moderating added sugar, something that sounds like generic dietary advice but carries genuine specific immune implications, deserves a place on this list alongside habits that more obviously seem connected to immune health. Now that we have covered all 7 habits, let us talk about practical strategies that may help support a stronger, more resilient immune system, starting with the habits we have already discussed. Improving sleep quality through a consistent bedtime. A cool and dark bedroom and limiting screens before bed can meaningfully support the immune-related restorative processes that happen during deep sleep. Staying physically active with regular moderate activity, rather than either complete inactivity or extreme, exhausting exercise, offers the most reliable immune benefit for most people. Eating nutrient-rich foods, emphasizing vegetables, fruits, lean protein, and healthy fats, while genuinely moderating added sugar rather than eliminating all enjoyment from your diet, supports the raw materials your immune system needs to function well. Managing stress through practices like regular movement, time in nature, deep breathing exercises, or simply engaging in hobbies you find genuinely enjoyable can help regulate the cortisol-related immune suppression we discussed earlier. And maintaining regular social connections, whether through family relationships, friendships, community involvement, or even structured activities like group exercise classes or volunteer work, offers a genuinely protective effect on immune function that goes well beyond the emotional and psychological benefits most people already associate with staying socially engaged. It is also worth knowing when changes in your immune health deserve a conversation with a doctor rather than simply being addressed through lifestyle adjustments alone. Persistent fatigue that does not improve with better sleep and stress management, frequent infections that seem to occur more often than they used to, or noticeably slower recovery from illnesses or wounds compared to your own past experience are all worth mentioning at your next appointment. In some cases, these patterns point toward an underlying nutritional deficiency, a chronic health condition, or a medication side effect that is worth identifying and addressing directly, rather than assuming your immune system's changes are simply an unavoidable and unmodifiable part of getting older. I want to leave you with this thought before we close. Immune health does not respond to dramatic one-time interventions nearly as reliably as it responds to consistent, everyday habits practiced over the long term. The 7 habits we covered today, poor sleep, inactivity, dehydration, chronic stress, inadequate nutrition, social isolation, and excessive sugar intake, all share something important in common. They are each genuinely within your ability to influence, starting today without requiring anything expensive or complicated. While no lifestyle habit can completely reverse the natural age-related changes happening within your immune system, the research is clear that these everyday choices meaningfully shift the odds in your favor, helping your body respond more effectively when it actually needs to defend itself. If this video gave you something valuable today, I would really appreciate it if you took a moment to leave a comment below and share which of these 7 habits surprised you the most, or let us know which one you are planning to work on first. Your comments genuinely help this channel reach more people who could benefit from this information, and they help shape what we cover in future videos. If you have a parent, spouse, or friend over 60 who could use a reminder about supporting their immune health, please consider sharing this video with them today. It might be exactly the motivation they need to build one new habit into their daily routine. And if you have not subscribed to Longevity Insight yet, now is a great time to do it. We are building a community here focused on clear, practical, science-based guidance for staying strong, resilient, and independent at every stage of life, with more videos on heart health, gut health, and essential nutrients already on the channel and plenty more on the way. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications so you never miss a new upload, and I will see you in the next video. Here is to a stronger, more resilient immune system, one small daily habit at a time.